On today's Edge of Wonder, at long last, a topic many of you have been waiting for, Ben and Rob tackle chemtrails. In part one of this two-part series, we talk about what they are, where they come from, and what's really in the air we breathe. And we would be remiss were we not to reveal the involvement of our very own Air Force. Ever heard of aluminum toxicity? If not, it's high time that you do. How do you feel about strontium and barium and who knows what other chemicals in your body without your permission or knowledge? All this and more as we take a high-altitude deep dive into the chemtrail conspiracy on the Edge of Wonder.
Welcome to Edge of Wonder.
Have y'all ever looked up at the sky and wondered what those long clouds in the skies were and how they were formed?
If you've never blinked twice at them, today we're sharing some information that you'll reconsider.
Some people call them contrails, and others call them chemtrails. Well, who's right, and what are they?
In this two-part series, we'll be covering what chemtrails are, where they came from, and who's behind it all.
Is there a more sinister plan behind them? Is the deep state behind it?
To kick things off, let's clear up what contrails are. Contrails are condensation trails produced by the jet's exhaust flying at high altitudes that form the line-shaped clouds you see in the sky.
So that's what it was. Great episode. We can go home now. Yeah, no.
Right. That's not the whole picture. There's also chemtrails, which are also jet trails in the sky, but many researchers claim they're created by military or private planes when they spray harmful chemicals over populated areas.
There's been many studies and accounts covering the extent of these chemtrails' harmfulness to people and the environment. We'll get into that later on in the episode.
We'll also get into the motive behind the chemtrail operations. Was it premeditated and orchestrated through a meticulous execution, or was it just an unintentional, harmful byproduct of aviation in general?
So where did they come from? To set some context, in 1991, the word chemtrail originated in the US Department of Defense as a title for a chemistry manual used at the Air Force Academy.
Even if it's not explicitly stated in any public military documentation, the term did come from the US Department of Defense, or more specifically, the Air Force.
Who was involved in creating the techniques that produced chemtrails? It all begins with Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, member of the Manhattan Project that actually built the atomic bomb.
And creator of the Strategic Defense Initiative, mockingly named the Star Wars, because they had designed weapon systems that could shoot anti-craft laser beams, subatomic particle beams, and electromagnetic railguns from ground and space.
Really, Ben? And there it is. Ben's wearing a Star Wars shirt again.
Well,
you just had to bring Star Wars into this, didn't you?
I figured since we're talking about Star Wars, might as well, but although I think your shirt...
Points for originality right there. All right.
No, it's really in there. I'm not making it up. So under Teller's leadership from 1958 to 1960, the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which he founded, gained notoriety as the dark heart of weapons research.
Teller came up with a technique like SAI that could inject particles into the stratosphere to cool and warm the Earth. And this all came out of his work with the military-industrial complex.
And the military-industrial complex is responsible for orchestrating many nefarious plans against the American society. But we'll save that for another episode.
Would you all like to see a show on the military-industrial complex? Let us know in the comments below. So in 2001, Edward Teller's geoengineering methods were cited in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC World Climate Report.
We'll get into how else the UN's IPCC is involved in promoting and funding chemtrails and geoengineering in a bit. And by the way, I also saw so many chemtrail planes that flew over when I was in Ohio. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, I guess it is a big crop area. But in H.R. 2977, the Space Preservation Act of 2001, chemtrails are referred to as exotic weapons among plasma, sonic, electromagnetic weapons, laser weapons, extraterrestrial weapons, chemical, biological, environmental, climate, or tectonic weapons.
Exotic weapons systems?
Yeah, what is that?
Okay, exotic weapons systems are weapons designed to damage space or natural ecosystems with the purpose of inducing damage upon a target population or region on Earth or in space. I mean, guys, this is a US bill that was introduced in Congress. The government has been aware of this for who knows how long and tried to help people by passing this bill.
So what's in the air? If chemtrails are so dangerous, then what exactly are in these chemtrails? Prior to her departure in 2010, a former employee at the U.S. Air Force conducted an air and soil sampling and found aluminum, barium, and strontium in them.
In 2011, there was an air sample study conducted in Los Angeles. The findings showed that the concentration of barium in the air was 1,376 parts per million, which is 688 times the maximum contaminant limits.
Aluminum in the air was 20,120 parts per million, which is over 10,000 times the maximum contaminant limit.
And additionally, in 1991...
Wait.
What?
That's the same year the term chemtrail first appeared on that chemistry manual, by the way.
How ironic.
Yeah.
Well, on that same year, there was also a patent granted for stratospheric Welsh box seeding for reduction of global warming, and this is all public. One proposed solution in this patent involves seeding the atmosphere with metallic particles like aluminum oxide, which was suitable for the purpose and relatively inexpensive. Basically, chemtrails.
So chemtrail, pilot, and wildfires. A detailed account from a chemtrail pilot came out in 2014, which unpacks a lot of the operations around chemtrails.
The operation goes by the name of Indigo Skyfold. These chemtrail pilots are told to fly specific routes. Satellite communication links or comm links control aerosol dispersal patterns.
In order to keep information from leaking, pilots, navigation, and maintenance crews are rotated constantly to prevent pilots and their families from making too many friends and ending up with loose lips.
The pilots themselves aren't fully aware of what's going on either. All they're told is their jobs are related to national security.
All right, to shake things up even more, the pilots get swapped between day and night flights. There's a base for daytime flights and one more for evening flights. Furthermore, each of these bases covers a 250-mile zone, and each fleet of planes covers 3 states.
And what kind of person does it take to fly these planes and become a chemtrail pilot?
The chemtrail pilot said that Indigo pilots are chosen from top ranks within the Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard and compensated as well as an Air Force One pilot.
They're apparently hardened to humanity and indifferent about doing away with people who are leeching off of others from their perspective. In other words, they're willing and able.
Their account does end on a bit of an ominous note. The pilot mentioned that there would be Indigo Phase 2 flights that would use a new, invisible, and extremely toxic chemtrail mix, focusing on California and Texas to worsen the drought.
We know that from multiple sources that chemtrails are a desiccant, meaning it removes humidity. So does this line up with what we've seen happen in California and Texas?
In July 2018, Austin's KUT.org reported that the drought and extreme heat made 2018 the worst year so far for wildfires, and Texas is expecting the, quote, highest number of wildfires in the state in 7 years, according to Texas A&M Forest and Service data.
As of August 9th, 2018, the Forest Service counted 893 wildfires in Texas. That's more wildfires each year from 2012 through 2017, except for 2013, which had 899 fires.
In 2017, the Insurance Information Institute, or III, ranked California and Texas as the top 2 states most prone to wildfires. Additionally, 6 out of the top 10 costliest wildfires happened within the last 2 years, all of which happened in California.
We recently did interviews with David Wilcock and Dr. Michael Sala covering the California wildfires. Considering how wildfires have been ramping up in these 2 states, there may be a connection between Indigo Phase 2 flights and these wildfires.
Yeah, these wildfires are increasing in both intensity and frequency. In those interviews, we cover how these wildfires seem to be too precise to be completely natural occurrence.
And those of you who are new to our channel and haven't seen those interviews yet, we'll link it below in the description.
Aluminum toxicity. In 2014, Peace from the Cornell Chronicle wrote that 40% of the world's potentially arable land is unusable due to aluminum toxicity. This hurts food production drastically, and we'll get into how researchers have combated aluminum toxicity through genetically modifying plants in a bit.
Some folks noticed how the chemical symbols for barium and aluminum, Ba and Al, spell Baal, the storm god worshipped by the dark solar cults and the deep state, which is associated with blood, human, and child sacrifice.
I mean, okay, it could be a coincidence, but sometimes it's super creepy how deep state just lays it out there so overtly and out in the open. How do these chemicals in the air affect you?
Inhaling or consuming too much aluminum can cause Alzheimer's, brain and bone disease, and breast cancer. As for barium, exposure to barium can cause muscle weakness and paralysis.
In France, Bernard Taillet, a specialist in inorganic chemistry, received samples of filaments that fell from the sky from different people across various regions in France.
These filaments contained a toxic compound called phthalates, harmful to people's reproductive health.
These filaments can cause diseases such as Morgellons disease. Morgellons disease is the disease where those afflicted notice irritable skin conditions like skin lesions containing multicolored filaments and experience fatigue, joint and muscle pain, and neurological problems.
So we know a bit more now about how chemicals sprayed into the air and soil affects human health. But how do these sprayed chemicals affect plants and crops?
For starters, an overabundance of aluminum in soil with a high acidity is highly toxic to plants because it inhibits root growth and damages root systems.
Now, this is according to the folks who came up with the patent for the aluminum-tolerant gene in sorghum plant, SB-mate, in May 2007.
What are you, Australian?
SB-mate?
Lee Cochin, the director of the USDA, Robert W. Hawley, Center for Agriculture and Health at Cornell, says that at the NRAT1 aluminum-tolerant gene in rice will open the doors for using NRAT1 to improve aluminum tolerance in other cereal crops.
In 2009, a brief from the International Food Policy Research Institute stated how they alleviated issues that small-scale, resource-poor farmers faced by providing genetically engineered aluminum-tolerant crops like cassava, sorghum, and millet.
Across the board, researchers and consumers are acknowledging aluminum overabundance as an issue and identifying solutions, but not calling out the main culprit behind it all.
So what do we know about chemtrails so far? It's been around for almost 30 years, originating from Edward Teller. Patents related to his technology was granted in 1991. 10 years later, it's thrusted into the mainstream by the UN.
And chemtrails have been poisoning us through the air and our food sources through aluminum toxicity.
A newer version of chemtrails is in the works and aims to exacerbate droughts and wildfires in Texas and California. Have you seen or heard anything odd about chemtrails or Operation Indigo Skyfold that you want to share with us? Leave it in the comments below.
Make sure you watch our next episode where we cover which organizations may be behind chemtrails and who funds the operations. Remember to like and subscribe and click on that bell so you know when our next episode on chemtrails premieres.
And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys out
on the edge of not chemtrails.
Of Pedro.
Yeah, Pedro. Sky and wondered what those long clouds in the sky were and how they were formed.
How they were formed.
I'm trying to go high and low here.
I think you're really
Gosh,
excited.
Rob.
I think you're really excited.
Eat your food, Tina. Tina, eat your food.
You want some tater tots?